you. Jeremiah Sam from Ghana. Part of the target for the new narrative is clearly Africa. I mean, China's investment, Russia's efforts to prop up certain kinds of governments. Is it working? How's it working? I mean, Africa's a big place, and I don't mean to talk about it as if it's one thing, which it hardly is. But here we are, kind of stuck with it. And so, over to you.
So just to answer your question, it is working. I am done. First of all, I'd like to thank ICDS for bringing a voice from Africa here, and then also our partner, National Endowment for Democracy, which is funding us to do significant research around the malign authoritarian influence in West Africa. And also, I think I brought the sunshine from Africa.
Thank you.
From what I've read about the Baltics, and you as well, it's quite chilly here. And so this is my plea that I'll get more invites to come to this conference. But back to more serious issues. Competition of narratives. I think it's really working for Russia and China. They're leveraging on recent crises around climate change, conflicts and wars, as well as even the COVID-19 pandemic, to project different narratives that challenges the traditional influence of the West. And then they're leveraging on soft power. They're using very nice tropes. I'll come to that later part of my conversation with you. They're doing strategic economic investments. And then also, you mentioned about social media. They're using media very effectively to project their narratives that they are equal partners to African countries, challenging the hegemony of the West, and projecting themselves as a viable alternative, towards protecting the African interests, respecting African sovereignty, and stability. Climate change. They project themselves as partners in combating the adverse impacts of climate change, and then contrasting that sharply with the West's policies that, for instance, asking for going quickly to green energy, for instance, and they claim that that is going to hinder development. So they are actually investing in factories, promoting use of fossil fuels, and making reference to the fact that the advanced countries actually developed based on fossil fuels. So why shouldn't you? And they're encouraging the use of it, investing in factories. And this is bread and butter issues because the factories are generating jobs, bringing about income. And so they take a developmental approach to climate change, whereas they will contrast and through disinformation as well, to say that the Western's policies is quite punitive and destructive of Africa's development. And a quick reference is the current, quite new EC's deforestation regulation, which actually, makes it difficult for African countries doing cocoa production, coffee, to clear forests, to expand cocoa farms, for instance. And for China and Russia, they'll tell you that, no, this is going to hinder your development. So why do you have to go that way? Adopt our models and develop. Same with conflicts and wars. China, for a very long time, have the narrative of non-interventionist approach. So they will sit back, support you with whatever you need. Russia is quite different. I mean, they are actually using the African Corps, former Wagner Group, to support a lot of the new, upcoming, I don't want to refer to them as coup d'etat leaders, but yes, in the Sahel region in West Africa.
It's just all across Africa?
Yes, all across Sahel, right from Guinea all the way to Niger. Wagner is in there. We haven't found a direct link to their interventions to the military coup d'etats, but the evidence is clear. When Mali coup d'etat happened, citizens were waving Russian flags and banning French flags. They're actually pushing the French companies out. They're creating the fertile grounds and they are leveraging on, capitalizing on grievances, such as NATO's intervention in Libya, French intervention in Ivory Coast, which, leaves long-lasting conflicts, humanitarian crisis. And they said, no, we respect your sovereignty. We are with you in this. And indeed, when we went to Mali in one of our research, we couldn't find an expert to talk to about the things that Russia is doing in Mali. One, they're afraid because most of the contracts the governments have with foreign countries is with Russia. And others said, no, Mali is actually doing well fighting rebels since Russian and Wagner came in. Yeah. So they are good for us. And they claim, the narrative is that we protect your sovereignty, we want your stability, whereas the West is seen as, projecting neo-colonialism adventures through their military interventions. So they are, winning in a way. COVID-19, I mentioned that earlier.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because, in a way, that's one of the issues that started the debate.
Absolutely.
Right? Which was the West only giving itself vaccines.
Exactly. So they leveraged on that, accusing the West of hoarding vaccines, limited supply of vaccines. And they were very quick. One of the first vaccines that we had was the Sputnik V, which even its efficacy was quite low. You had to take, in some countries, they had to take several shots. But that was what was available. And they said, look, we care for you. We came in when you need it. The West actually hoarding it. They're protecting copyrights for big farmers, for profits, instead of your lives, protecting your lives. And they thought that, no, we are more partners to you, we are more efficient in, your healthcare and all of that. And through all of this, they are gaining a lot of soft power because when they come in, they look at immediate needs, low-hanging fruits. So you don't have electricity, we quickly will put in a dam for you. Your roads are bad, we quickly will construct a road for you. And all these big projects are all over dotted across Africa. They are challenging Western hegemony and influence through their media engagements, and they are undertaking strategic media engagements through exchanges. I mean, African media is one of the poorest resourced media in the world in terms of human capacity to undertake in-depth investigative pieces, linking even bad contrast to the hardships on the continent. It's not done. And they're getting this first-class treatment to Beijing and Moscow, and they come back and their editorial policy is totally a change. Yeah. They are being resourced with computers and cameras. I mean, the person, your hands are in their mouth. How do you criticize them? How do you, get alternative narrative? Right. They even, as far as go down to rural communities. I mean, there was an instance in Nigeria where we found that these TV stations in very rural communities, and they use Star Times decoder. It's owned by the Chinese, and it's solar powered. This community, some of them haven't even seen television before. All of a sudden, they see these big screens. It's on 24/7. Community members go and sit and chat, and it's all showing Russia and Chinese propaganda. Right. How do you change the narrative in that?
Right. You see, no, I mean, and of course, there's been a bit of a pushback against Chinese loans, for instance. I mean, a bit of anxiety, but I mean, I've been very intrigued, especially, and we can go into it later, but just about what the Wagner Group was. I mean, how successful it's been. I mean, particularly in French, so-called French Africa, old French Africa. I mean, that's where the change of narrative has gotten real. Yeah. It's on the ground. Yeah.
I'm happy you brought the loans and Chinese agreements. I mean, there's this huge thing I'm sure you've all heard about the debt trap diplomacy by the Chinese, and it's basically bring a lot of hardship. So I like to describe the Chinese intervention as more as climate change. It comes in slowly and lives with you forever. Whereas the Russians come in as a tsunami, or hurricane, just hits you and destroys everything, But the debt trap diplomacy is quite key. A country like Kenya had to withhold paychecks for thousands of civil servants, basically to service Chinese loans. Recently, the chief economic advisor to President Ruto tweeted that paychecks or defaults take your pick.
Right.
And they've introduced a lot of taxes, and this is really down to
No,
hardship.
I bring this up partly because it's a little bit of a counterweight